We really did have a great time in Washington, D.C. I make a lot of jokes about it. There's a lot that I don't like about the city, but at the end of the day, seeing friends, seeing people who run small businesses out there that I remember from my time in D.C., and just getting back to seeing the monuments and freezing my ass off was nice for a week, but I'm glad to be home. Anyway, what you may have been waiting for, we're finally going to talk about The Green Book. And Green Book is a film that I have intentionally not seen for a while. There have been several people in my life who are like, let's check out The Green Book because it seems like an interesting story. Every trailer, everything I'd heard about it, everything I'd read about it, it just felt like one of those movies that had an interesting story or an interesting premise and completely missed the point. It seemed like a movie that was built to win Oscars. And like I talked about in my Oscar rant, it's a film where almost everybody involved has had to apologize to the families of those involved because it's so inaccurate, because they so didn't do their research. And at the end of the day, it just feels like a movie that Hollywood would embrace, because at the end of the day, it has all of the trappings of a film that's really having an important conversation about race, but told from the perspective of a white protagonist. And it felt like a movie that would miss the point. And I'm happy to say we were flying back. Joe and I decided to put this on in our seats, and everything that I expected was exactly fucking right.
I don't know what to say.
It was a tough watch, I'm not gonna lie. It was a tough and frustrating watch, and I wanna get this out of the way right up front. Is it an enjoyable movie? Sure. I knew exactly what it was going into it, and as far as that kind of movie went, and when I say that kind of movie, let me be very clear. I am talking about a lazy historical drama, or drama comedy in this case. I think it's a fantastic story. I want to see the documentary that just came out about the actual people involved. I want to get in this story. I'm down with it. I'm into it. I actually really liked what I was hearing about and what the story's actually about. And for what it is, I got exactly what I expected out of it. It was enjoyable. There are some funny moments. Mahershala Ali, as always, is really good. Viggo Mortensen, I'll get into a little bit more in detail later, but it's hard to overcome all of the drama surrounding the movie. And not just that it won the Academy Award. I already said I'm done with those. But the fact that it is so inaccurate is just a thing that really bothers me. It's a thing that it's tough for me to get over, because it just feels like at a certain point, these are people who figured out a real world situation, and I'm sure that it's nothing negative. I'm sure that Peter Farrelly had the best of intentions writing it and making it, and I'm sure that everybody involved thought they were doing this really interesting story. But the cynical part of me just thinks, like, you found this story, you decided to really dumb it down, you decided to sort of whitewash the protagonist, and at the end of the day, you made an Oscar bait film. It feels very inarticulate about its premise. It feels very disingenuous about its characters. And there's a handful of things I would like to talk about. First and foremost, again, I was so much more interested in Mahershala Ali's character than I was with Viggo Mortensen's. And why is that important? Because Tony Lip is just a stupid character. As somebody who's of Irish and Italian descent, I don't mind people making fun of either side of that, but at least don't make it a lazy caricature. And this is just a nonsensical caricature. It's like, he eats a lot, but that's a thing for like the first half of the movie. It's not funny. It doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't really have a plot development aspect to it. And at the end of the day, I ended up being happy that part of the character was involved, because there's no other characteristic aside from the fact that he's just a moron. He's just dumb. Fat man eat thing is like his one mode, and then fat man needs stuff explained is like the second mode. And it's one of those things too where it's like, if you're gonna bullshit it, and you're gonna have him begin the film and you're like, well, maybe he's racist, he needs to overcome his demons and become educated, he needs to get woke. There's not really even that much character development to it. And this isn't a significant spoiler. At the beginning of the film, Viggo walks out and he sees these two African-American men who are working in his house, and they're drinking from his glasses in the kitchen. And there's like 6 needless shots to set up the fact that he's obviously gonna throw the glasses out in the way that this film is being framed. and then like the wife brings him out. It's just like, it's a stupidly overshot sequence. But that's like the only real moment in the film where it's like, yeah, he's kind of a disgusting racist. After that, he's pretty chill with everything. And he's actually really chill with the fact that Mahershala Ali, in 1962, I believe, it turns out is a homosexual. He actually has to get him out of a situation where he's discovered having sex with a man at a YMCA, and Tony Lip has to get him away from the police. But this is 62, and that scene lasts like a minute, 2 minutes. And I'm not saying it should have been like a point of contention for the character. I don't know if he was homophobic, for sure. But one, it's an element of Mahershala Ali's character's life that is fascinating, that isn't really explored at all. And it's something that doesn't add any kind of conflict between these two characters. And so really what you just have is a very understated and quiet character in Mahershala Ali, who is, yes, to an extent, showing and not telling his struggles in the South. But you also have a character in Viggo Mortensen who's really not having any kind of interaction to learn about it, to evoke any meaningful dialogue, to communicate any messages. It's a paint by numbers type of film where you go into it, you don't learn anything, it doesn't really convey any new ideas, and it doesn't utilize its characters to further any type of relationship dynamic that might be resonant. To an extent, it's the fucking Odd Couple, because Mahershala Ali is kind of prim and proper, and Viggo Mortensen is just a slobbish moron. And there's a lot of jokes that aren't funny, a lot of just awkward, stiff, stilted dialogue. There's just jokes that don't land. It was just a movie that in every way just felt empty. It's just a movie. It's probably the best review I can give. Like if I had a scale, it ranks a movie out of movie. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And now, there's a place for that. There are some movies that are kind of just like soul food, like Chef, to me is one of those movies where it's like, yeah, there's really not a lot of creative arc to it. It's just an enjoyable ride. Interesting characters, good dialogue, nice scenery, cool moments. You know, there's a musical scene over barbecue, and there's always great food. It's just a fun movie that I want to go back and watch. So you don't always need to be Citizen Kane to be a great movie, but you gotta have fucking something going on. And when you expect everything that's gonna happen, and when, again, your road bumps are hiccups, and when your character's struggles are quickly thrown away, there's no stakes. It just overlooks the person. It gives you a 2D rendering of a human being as a boring character. And Mahershala Ali is really, really good with that character. And Viggo Mortensen, who is also a caricature and not a character, is a great actor and does well with what he's given. But neither are given very much. But look, it's not all bad. I mean, at the end of the day, there are some cool things. Like Mahershala Ali has some really fascinating scenes where he's playing the piano. And I gotta tell you, as a filmmaker, if they found a way to fake those scenes, then props to them, and hopefully it's not just some incredibly boring technological gimmick. But if he learned to play some of those bits, that's super impressive. I mean, some of the best scenes are just him jamming out. I think probably the only scenes I really enjoyed of that are when Mahershala Ali is the focus of things and not Viggo Mortensen. Unfortunately, in a movie that should be about that character, it's about Viggo. It's about Fat Lip. It's about the guy who folds a pizza in half and eats it like a fucking moron. It's just... And there's even setups for good moments. There's even setups for good dialogue. There's setups for good conflict. And you know what? They can't use the excuse anymore that they were trying to keep it overly authentic because it's complete bullshit in the first place. But the movie even sets up moments where Viggo Mortensen could step in and actually express the development of his character, or interact with people who literally haven't seen him since before this several-month-long adventure with Mahershala Ali, and it completely skips over those. Like they were saying, like we got to wrap this up. The Academy voters, they don't have an attention span past like 90 minutes, so we got to wrap this shit up. And that just sorry, I'm getting worked up about this. At the end of the day, I think if you're just looking for an enjoyable, thoughtless movie, this is one that you might enjoy. I was moved by the relationship between these two characters. These two actors did a great job together, and there are some great moments of acting. it's just frustrating that it was such a lazy adaptation of a really interesting true story. And I'm as angry watching it as I was worried that I would be. And so, as the end of our trip out to DC, as the end of this crazy week, God, it was just such a down note to stop everything on. So, would I recommend it? No. Do I think it's the worst thing ever? No. But man, it's symptomatic of just everything that is wrong with people who spend more time thinking about the appearance of a film and the end product than they do about the substance and content therein. And that's just doing your research, taking an extra few hours to think about who your characters are when they're based on real people. That's an investment of time and nothing else. And if you can't invest that, you don't deserve my money.